Hello, viewers. Welcome to Theater in the Rounds. And this week, we have a special edition of bonus material. Now, we're going to be touching on the hotter topics addressed in our previous episodes. The way this is going to run, each question has 1 minute. Starting with the first one. Blithe Spirit was the only amateur theater production we saw. How does this affect your review?
I think the first thing we need to take into account is that amateur theater productions have much smaller budgets than professional. So as spectators, we need to be reasonable about our expectations.
I agree we need to understand that amateur theater and they have these lower budgets, but if they do a bad job, they still do a bad job. Okay, Blithe Spirit, fantastic. I don't really want to talk about them doing a bad job because I really enjoyed the cast and crew. But let's just say they did it. I'm not going to beat around the bush and not talk about the poor things they did.
But Kevin, these people are volunteers. This is their hobby. They're taking time away from their day jobs.
It doesn't matter if they're taking time away from their day job and volunteer. They're still going up there trying to succeed, trying to do a good job.
They're not even professionally trained necessarily. And what is success for amateur theater? The point is different than in professional theater. The point is to provide enjoyment for family and friends, which is what most of the audience is made up of.
Yes, Elizabeth, you do bring up an interesting point. You win the round. We analyzed 2 shows that utilized colorblind casting this year. In your opinion, critics, did you think casting without regard to race detracted from or added to the overall performances?
I found that more than anything, the colorblind casting mostly took away from the realism of the show. I found myself focusing on the actors and not their characters, and I kept being taken out of the plot time and time again.
But would you really have wanted to sacrifice an excellent performance for a little bit more realism?
Fair, and I would say the acting was very strong, but the Seagull had a huge misstep with Bothia Watson. She played Masha, and her performance was subpar at best, regardless of her race.
But you can't really blame colorblind casting for that. And Yana McIntosh, who played Arkadina, she was fabulous. And as well, the fact that she was a woman of color added some visual contrast to the piece that would have been missing without her. And even in Blood Wedding, where visual contrast wasn't of so much importance, the cultural diversity of the cast meant that the value of the performance was based totally on talent and not at all on the way they looked.
Wow. Wow. What a point. Now, out of the 3 shows that we reviewed, what set enhanced the core vision of the show?
I thought the Seagull had a really cool decaying realism thing going on. They kept the same set for both the inside and the outside scenes. So that brought elements of both inside and outside to each location. And I just thought that really reinforced the decay of the characters and the relationships throughout the play.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, but I actually want to talk about Blithe Spirit. I think they did a really good job reflecting the relationships in the play, but using the set. Because they had this extreme realism for representing Charles and his current wife, Ruth. But then there was also this supernatural element with the picture frames moving and all of that. And I think that really reflected Elvira and Charles.
Yes, I totally didn't even think about that. That's such a good point.
Yeah, but your point. Come on. Yeah.
Now I'm back here puzzled and I'm thinking, Jen, Trelawney, that is a tie. I know it's not part of the game, but I don't see what I can do here. You both raised incredibly valuable points, and I'm stuck to leave it as a draw. Let's look back at the gun going off in the Seagull during the transitions, and the horses combined with the shattering glass in Blood Wedding. Which worked better to create the ominous feeling that each show was aiming for.
I think that Blood Wedding was much stronger in creating that ominous feel, especially thinking of that shattering glass. It was so loud and unexpected, especially since you didn't know where it was coming from. It was so eerie.
Yeah, well, I thought it was actually the gunshots and the seagull because the whole transition was so busy that the first gunshot was like completely unexpected and jarring. And it changed the whole scene from a simple scene change to something much more macabre.
Yeah, but the gun was too loud and uncomfortable. The transitions were still too long, and this metaphor of Amina's career dying was way overdone.
No, okay, no. The gunshot was meant to be uncomfortable. I don't think the people were just planning that the audience would be like, oh, they're shooting Amina. How unfortunate. Oh, I thought it was interesting that you think it was about her failing career, because I thought it might have more to do with them destroying Amina's innocence.
Okay, fair point. We're bringing it back to Blood Wedding again. Those racing horses in the forest.
That's it. That's 60 seconds. We are out of time. Oh, Trelawney. Oh, she came out of nowhere. Swept that one right off the ground. Now, let's remember, none of the plays we've spoken about are 21st century plays. Adapting them for today's stage can be quite difficult, especially when trying to reach younger audiences. Now, my point is, what show was the most accessible for today's audience?
I think Life Spirit did an excellent job reinforcing the world of play, making it really accessible and understanding to the audience. I think it was because of the genre of comedy mixed with the realist set.
I agree, Blight Spirit did a great job, but you gotta think about the other two shows we saw. For example, The Seagull, I think did a great job at utilizing the themes presented. The universal ones, like Tregorn, the struggle with his family, and the pressures he has with them. And he wanted to get his work successful and failing and trying hard again. Everyone can relate to that.
Kevin, that's just one of the relationships. Yes, maybe you can relate to it, but how many other relationships were there? Like 8?
Yeah, and I'm sure you can find someone that can relate to all those 8. For example, Arkadina and her love triangle that she's in, not knowing who she loves, someone's going to connect to that.
No, Kevin, 3 words. Too many subplots. Just because you can relate to one of them doesn't mean you relate to the play. It just means you can relate to a couple characters. With Blight Spirit, you could relate to the whole play. It was 1, maybe 2 relationships, and you could follow it. You can understand.
And that's it. We are out of time. Kevin, you surprise me sometimes. And you sure took that round. And that's all we've got for tonight, folks. Thank you for watching this special edition of Theater in the Rounds.